Minnesota in probably 20 years. Bring gas.
Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Okay, it's a hottest Wolves takes edition here. We should put the disclaimer because sometimes these clips make it to social media, which is great. But the problem is like when Sports Dad comes out and says something under the safety blanket of hottest Wolves takes, it's a safe space to turn up the temperature on a take here. You know, the context gets a little lost when these things hit social media. So just know, disclaimer at home, these are our hottest Wolves takes. We're going to turn the temperature up a little bit. So don't pile on Sports Dad.
My favorite is when people crap on the hot takes of like, what happened to journalism? What happened to the ethics and the goodness of journalism with hot takes? That's my favorite one.
I mean, yeah, we still sprinkle a little journalism in here on Flagrant Howls.
Crap on me all that you want. I'm fine.
Judd actually enjoys the criticism.
I'm fine with it. Yeah. You know what? If it makes your day, it makes your day. It's fantastic.
You know, Kieran's makes a lot of people's day right across the street from Target Center before we get started with our hottest takes.
Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes those hot takes are fueled from spending time at Kieran's, whether you want a nice pour, whether you want to start your day there as well as maybe a Bloody Mary, however you want to start your day or start a pregame or maybe a postgame Timberwolves celebration, go make it at Kieran's, which is just steps away from Target Center. They have great game day specials. It's a victory home for the Timberwolves. So when the Timberwolves win, go to Kieran's. And if you get down there early enough, go stop in there for a pregame pint as well. Go down to Kieran's, just steps away from the Target Center.
All right, Dex, why don't you lead us off here with your hottest Wolves take?
All right, mine's going to be Naz Reid related because everyone loves Naz Reid. How can you not love Naz Reid? I saw a former president even gave some praise to Naz Reid.
How about that?
Made the circulations, which I thought was pretty funny. So here's my hottest Wolves take. Naz Reid is going to be the most important player for the Minnesota Timberwolves' success for the rest of the season. So Naz has been entered into the starting lineup here. Julius Randle's missed some time. In these 8 games that Naz has been a starter, he is averaging 19 points, grabbing some boards. He's averaging 8.8 rebounds per game, shooting 47% from the field, 82% from free throw land, 35% from three. I'd like that to be a little higher to a degree, whatever. Naz Reid has still been a great jolt to the Timberwolves starting lineup. We've seen Jaden McDaniels have maybe the best stretch of his career. He's finally kind of unlocking some things we've been begging for Jaden McDaniels to do, and he's kind of maybe been the Robin to Ant over the last 6 weeks. However, I think there's a changing of the guard here. I think Naz Reid is going to be the most important player next to Ant, and Naz's insertion into the starting lineup, and we'll see what happens when Julius Randle comes back, but Naz Reid in the starting lineup, I think is a good thing. I don't know how you take this guy out when Julius Randle comes back, and it's even if it's limited production here, and I'm sure it might taper off a bit, but I think Naz Reid's inclusion of the starting lineup is the thing that puts the Timberwolves over the top from being a play-in team, and instead they become a threat, which is what they're supposed to be in a loaded Western Conference.
Yeah, and so Naz's minutes have ticked up, obviously, in the last, 7 or 8 games when he's been starting. Before he started starting this season, he was averaging like 24 minutes a game, somewhere in that ballpark, which was about 9 minutes less than Julius Randle on a nightly basis. And and I'm guilty of this right now in this moment. I hate that any sort of Naz Reid commentary has to run adjacent to like Julius Randle's slander. But that's kind of the nature of the roster construction right now, is that if you want more Naz Reid, it has to come at the expense of someone else's minutes and someone else's starting spot, and that would be Julius Randle. So, I mean, I do think we have piled on Julius too much this season, but Naz Reid deserves to be playing more than the 24 minutes a game he's been averaging for both this year's team and for just the long term. If you're looking to sign him to a $25-30 million a year extension, let's get on with it here. So yeah, I agree, man. It feels like you should be leaning into the Anthony Edwards. Even Jaden McDaniels. We've gone over the numbers in the last 7 games since Julius Randle went down. Jaden is 18-8 and 3 assists, and Naz is 21-10. And these guys are flying around with more energy. So it feels like leaning into that and that Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid partnership on the court. makes a ton of sense.
I think it would be Randall's slander if the intention of the Cat trade was to get him and keep him, but I don't think that was the intention. And so I don't think it's slander. I think that this is part of the grand plan, because the Cat trade was made in part why? To keep Naz Reid. Mm-hmm. So, like, to me, it's not slander. To me, it is clear that the direction of that trade alone was to retain Naz, and that's where his play of late has been so fantastic, because it's like, okay, you're proving that you deserve the bag. Like, you're playing exactly how the Wolves wanted. Julius being hurt in some ways is almost a fortunate break for the Wolves, because like it gives you this prolonged look at Naz now as a starter. So if this is perceived as being slander against Julius, I think that is the wrong way to perceive it. I think the correct way is to say Naz Reid is getting the opportunity and he's embracing it, and he's been great, and that is a huge thing, because now it sort of proves the Cat trade in some ways was a good trade.
Yeah, well, yeah, if that's, it kind of reminds you, just to use a cross-sport comparison, when 20 years ago, the Twins had A.J. Pierzynski, really good, rock-solid major league catcher, and they decided, we're going to trade A.J. Pierzynski to the Giants, and we're going to get some pieces back, but more importantly, we're going to open up space for Joe Mauer to jump in. And now you could argue that Cat is a better player than Naz Reid in many. He's a bigger player, better rebounder, and I would say as 3-point shooters, I don't know that there is a gap between those two guys now. Naz Reid, that's the crazy thing. Naz Reid shot a little bit in college, but when the Wolves brought him in as a summer league guy, undrafted, he was not a wing-like spacing 3-point shooter. So to turn himself into straight up, Naz Reid is one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. Any position. He's shooting 41% on volume. You know, he's taking, when he's playing 35 minutes, he's taking 7 or 8 threes a night, which is kind of crazy. But you trade a really good piece. You get some pieces back. In the Twins case, it was Liriano and Joe Nathan. You get Dante DiVincenzo. You get a first-round pick, Julius Randle, and then you open up space for someone else to jump in. I'll give you a hot take within Declan's hot take. Naz Reid is on a track to become one of the 3 or 4 greatest undrafted players in NBA history.
Wow.
I'm going to give you a list this is from Sporting News like 4 years ago, 2021. The greatest undrafted players in NBA history. And you tell me when I get to a place. Now, Naz hasn't put in the 15-year career that some of these guys have. But the way he is performing as an undrafted player, as a shooter, and just for some context, Naz Reid, even playing limited minutes to this point in his career, he doesn't play starter minutes. He's averaging 20 minutes a game throughout his 6-year career. And he's scoring 11 points a game, 5 rebounds. But as a 36 minutes guy, he's a 21 points, 10 rebounds, dish some assists, knock down threes at a 40% clip guy. So there's at age 25, there's another 8 years of growth through his prime here to even stack numbers more. But you let me know when I get to a player that you think, okay, I don't know. Like if Naz does this for another 6, 7, 8 years. So Ben Wallace is regarded as the greatest undrafted player of all time. Mm-hmm. He was one of the great defensive players in NBA history, the anchor of those Piston teams, right, in the early 2000s. He's a Hall of Famer, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 4-time All-Star as a rebounder and shot blocker. You think of the All-Star game as like dudes who are just pouring in offense, and then you throw Ben Wallace in there. He's like, yeah, I'm here to play defense in the All-Star game, so you guys can have your fun. Number 2 on this list, you got to go way back here to the 1960s. Connie Hawkins.
Oh, Connie.
He actually won the ABA MVP in his first year. He's a Hall of Famer. His reason for going undrafted was unlike any other player on this list. This is what's weird. Connie Hawkins was like a legendary talent. He was banned by the NBA for a wrongfully accused point shaving scandal during his time at Iowa in college. So he doesn't even really count. Like he wasn't undrafted
drafted.
on merit. He was undrafted
He was
on
toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's take Connie Hawkins off this list. Number 3, John Starks. Really good, hard-nosed, defensive point guard for the Knicks in the 90s.
The 90s right there. John Starks epitomizes the NBA in the 90s where we wanted to start brawls.
Yes. I mean, John Starks in the 90s for really good Knicks teams was a 15 to 20 points per game scorer who played good bulldog defense, distributed, he was a one-time all-star, just a good solid player. I would kind of put that as a mark of Naz Reid could have a better career than John Starks. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that. Bruce Bowen is number 4, defensive specialist, wing player, kind of like one of the first 3-and-D guys.
This whole thing is a theme.
Grind, gritty, defense, maybe some three-pointers. Number 5, Udonis Haslem, who was an active NBA player until the age of 42, just kind of hanging out on the Heat bench for the last 7 years. Heat culture guy. But defensive guy, big man, different type of player than Naz Reid. And then Fred VanVleet is on this list. Brad Miller, who actually I think maybe played like 10 games for the Timberwolves one time.
Yeah.
Avery Johnson,
Kings,
Jose
right?
Calderon.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
Kings
mostly
fan.
with the Kings.
Brad Miller
yeah.
was a big-time King, yeah.
But I guess my point here is it wild to suggest that Naz Reid, when it's all said and done in like 6 or 7 years, will have a better career than Brad Miller, Fred VanVleet, Udonis Haslem, Bruce Bowen, John Starks were really key pieces to good teams.
Right.
But like he's in that conversation if you project this out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely is. And again, a testament to, although he might have been a creepy guy off the or away from the actual basketball construction job, Gerson Rosas did a lot of good things.
Yeah, I mean, he drafted Anthony Edwards. He put together
But I mean, this like to identify this is impressive. Yes, I would say this. Naz Reid probably won't end up with multiple championships, unfortunately. Although I could be wrong about that. But yes, he is going to. But he is going to end up on the list that you just went through. Especially if you take out Connie, he's going to end up on the higher end of the offensive production from that list.
Totally,
no question.
Yep. I mean, he's easily a better offensive player than Udonis Haslem, than Bruce Bowen. I would say John Starks, hard to compare. He's a point guard in the 90s versus this
Ben Wallace,
unicorn big man, and certainly Ben Wallace. And we're taking Connie Hawkins off the list. So maybe the hot take evolves into Naz Reid is the best offensive player undrafted in the history of the NBA. Connie Hawkins aside.
I like it. Yeah, I love Ben Wallace was is Rudy who's the equivalent to Ben Wallace in today's NBA?
I mean, kind of Gobert, but
kind of.
Ben Wallace was also would fight you in any given.
Yeah.
Ben Wallace had a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Ben Wallace is not regarded in any way, shape, or form as soft.
No.
And Rudy, so European players can be regarded as kind of soft, but yeah, they're both going to kind of you're going to be playing shorthanded offensively. They're going to set screens and maybe catch lobs offensively. Ben Wallace did not have the height and size necessarily of Gobert, but he still blocked ridiculous amounts of shots. It's a good question. I'm trying to think
Maybe
of other.
Draymond's
smaller.
Yeah, he's not as tall.
the game's different too. Like it's changed a lot.
It's evolved. Yeah.
It's actually kind of harder to have a guy like Ben Wallace because teams value spacing so much, and
Ben Wallace today, I don't think he can make the league. I don't think he makes all-star games in 2025.
yeah, that's how many times how many all-star games has Rudy made?
Probably
me
a few,
see.
right? A couple.
In Utah, did he make a couple?
He probably made a couple.
Because it's crazy because he is also a 4-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, which is what Ben Wallace was.
Yep.
But he's not a player that you would look at and say like all-star game guy. He's only made 3 all-star games his last 3 years in Utah.
Okay.
So, interesting. Yeah, Naz Reid, literally one of the great undrafted talents in the history of the NBA. Judd, what's your hottest Wolves take?
My hottest Wolves take is this: the Timberwolves will enter the playoffs as a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. So
you're going there.
They're currently 7th. They're currently 7th. Okay, let's go through it. They are 14 games out of first, which is OKC. They're 6 behind the Grizzlies. They're 5.5 behind Denver, which going into the break was playing great basketball. They're 3.5 behind the 4 seed Houston Rockets. And that would mean that they would have to jump right now the Lakers, who they're 3 back of, and the Clippers, who are in the 6th seed, who they are 1 back of. So that's very possible. But I think they're going to be a top 4 seed. I think they're going to get their act together. The 3 top ones might be tough. Houston, I really like them, but they're still evolving. Like, I could see them dropping a bit. So I think at the end of the day, when the playoffs begin, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves, after all of the angst, and look, they deserve it. They've been up and down. I think they end up with one of those top 4 seeds in the Western Conference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's hard to parse apart sometimes in the NBA is when you see these teams, like Oklahoma City is a really good team, and they've built this crazy lead in the standings. Are they really that good, or is it a case where you get this year after year in the NBA where some teams, either by staying healthier or by just trying harder night after night, they put more value into flexing their muscles in the regular season? Not that the Wolves, I don't think the Wolves have a ton of issues with, they care. I think there's been some nights where you're wondering, where's that same level of energy? But it becomes a little bit less important based on circumstances to completely dominate the regular season. And that's kind of an indictment on the league and the seriousness of the regular season too.
Sure.
But when you look at the standings, you see Oklahoma City as a 14-game lead on the Wolves. But then when you watch them play, and maybe I'll look like an idiot when Oklahoma City blows the Wolves out on a home back-to-back this next weekend, there's not a 14-game gap between those teams when they play each other. The Wolves had a bunch of dudes out, and they competed and made Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City didn't lead the entire night. So I don't know if it manifests in the way that your hot take suggests, that they will become the 4 seed. But whatever seed they are going into the playoffs, I don't feel like. There's some years where you're like, yep, if you get that Nuggets team, good night in 5 games. I don't think there's anyone right now in the Western Conference, if the Wolves get a couple guys back especially, that I would say, oh yeah, they're getting swept. They're definitely screwed in this series.
The thing that drives you crazy about the Wolves is that they flip a switch, but the thing that leads me to believe that they could be a top 4 seed is they can flip a switch, right? So like if they come back with 26 games left and say, okay, screw it. You know what? It's been a tough year. It's been up and down, but let's take this seriously. I think that they can catch the Rockets. I really do. So like, it's an indictment to their play that they have been so up and down, but it's also a nod when you see them blast, the Nuggets off the floor here. When you see them going into the All-Star break, blast OKC, which was playing great. So I think they're going to get their act together, take it seriously, and I think that they are going to get into a top 4 seed. And look, I think that the potential exists completely for that not to be as hot a take as that sounds right now.
I'll give you another hot take within it. That's going to be my role on this show. I'm just going to piggyback off your hot takes and give you hot take within a take here. After we shout out Park Dental. In fact, I am, I think next week. Yeah, we're like a week away from my 6-month
pearly
checkup.
whites, man.
That's right. Old Macadac. So Park Dental is my new dentist, and I was without a dentist because my old dentist retired, and it was very traumatizing for me because I love my old dentist. But hey, you got to keep getting your teeth cleaned. So Park Dental stepped up, and I'm a little apprehensive about people are going to put their hands in my mouth for the first time. Couldn't have been a better experience. Unbelievable first experience. Look you can see me just smiling, walking out like a goof of Park Dental. They've been cleaning people's teeth in Minnesota and western Wisconsin for over 50 years. And if you're in the Twin Cities, you're likely just minutes away from a Park Dental somewhere, either work or home. So check them out. Get your teeth cleaned and scheduled at parkdental.com. On a cold day like this, you know what could warm you up? One of those parlor burgers, Judd.
Oh, Absolutely delicious. Look, you know what? It's not just so the burger itself, famous, right? But I keep telling you guys as well, the fried chicken sandwich is, I think, as good. Absolutely fantastic. Parlor is a great place to stop. North Loop, how about this? Pre-game for a Wolves game.
No.
So like it's like you and the gal are going to a Wolves game and you're saying, where are we going to stop? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Parlor Bar, it's close to the arena. Absolutely great. Craft cocktails as well. Everything that you could possibly want. Kitchen open until midnight on Friday and Saturday, so check it out, Parlor Bar. And as I said, check out not just the burger, but the fried chicken sandwich. Absolutely, positively, in my opinion, the Naz Reid of Parlor. The Naz Reid of Parlor. Do not sleep on it.
Amen. Amen. All right, here's my hot take within Judd's hot take. I think the Timberwolves, from now until the end of the season, are going to have one of the 3 to 5 best records in the NBA. So, like, if the season started today, I think they're going to go on a run, and maybe that puts them in the 4 seed, to your prediction. I think they're going to have one of the best records from, like, let's say that Oklahoma City game that they won right before the break until the end of the year. And there's 2 reasons why. Number one, they've discovered depth on their roster. They've discovered some energy. We've already covered the Naz Reid stuff. We talked about Jaden last week. Jalen Clark is in the mix as a weapon. Terrence Shannon Jr. with his upside-down jersey hanging at his alma mater is a weapon now. Like, you've got these weapons, these combos you can tap into now. And maybe most importantly, the Timberwolves have the easiest remaining schedule of any team in the Western Conference. And that includes this week where your first 4 games out of the gate starting Friday are at Houston, back-to-back against Oklahoma City, and then at the Lakers. So that's actually one of the hardest 4-game stretches you're going to find in the NBA. That included, you still have the easiest schedule, strength of schedule, opponent win percentage of any team in the Western Conference. Phoenix, Sacramento, Denver, Memphis, Clippers, Lakers have the hardest schedules. Those are all teams that you're jockeying for position with in the Western Conference. But you have 2 games left against the Pelicans, 3 games left against the tanking Cooper Flag desperate Jazz, a game left against the Hornets, 2 against the Nets, 2 against the broken 76ers. And they did include the Spurs on here as an easy opponent. I wouldn't put the Spurs as an easy opponent, but you know, they do have one of the worst records technically in the Western Conference. Still a competitive team, but if you can lock it in, Anthony Edwards continues to play at a high level, and you stick with lineup combinations that work versus lineup combinations that are political, I think they have a chance to maybe even to sniff the upper 40s, 50-ish wins with this schedule.
Well, look at them. Like, yes, because when you look at the teams that they have lost to and beaten, right? Like, it's not like, well, they beat up on bad teams, but if they play a good team. So, like, to me, this is all about them. This is not about the competition. It's not about the teams. It's about them. If they decide that they are going to, and this includes, I think that you just hit on a very interesting point, Phil, which is Chris Finch as well. If they decide to bust their hump to try to win and not be concerned about who's playing when Julius comes back, does he have to start? If they go with the flow of what's worked, I think you're exactly right. And I would say if the schedule was even tougher, you still might be right. Because I think the 2024-25 Wolves problems are far more about them than anything the competition's done to them.
One of the best lines of advice my father ever said, the late Steve Goff, you worry about you. And that's what the Timberwolves have to do here. You worry about you. And there could be individuals like Chris Finch, you worry about you, etc. Same with Ant. But I think what the Timberwolves can do if they apply themselves and start beating up on these bad teams, and they've showed good fight against some of the better teams in the Western Conference, it's not out of the question that they could be 100% a top 4 team in a loaded West.
Yeah, they would have to get to 50 wins, which sounds kind of crazy because they're only 6 games. There's 31 and 25. They'd have to go 19-7 the rest of the way.
Yeah.
But they play 11 games. Well, they play 10 games against just objectively bad or super banged up teams. And then we'll throw the Spurs in as a team that you should probably beat the Spurs. So let's put them in there as the 11th team. Can you go 9-2 in those games against teams you're supposed to beat? I would say go 11-0, but let's give them a couple games where whatever, they fall asleep against the Jazz or something. So they go 9-2 in those games. They would have to go 10-5 against the better teams on their schedule, which seems like a stretch. So 50 would be like a crazy hot run. You'd have to go 19-7. But again, like they started the season last year way hotter than 19-7. Weren't they like 20-3 or something? So all the doom and gloom from November and December, I feel like it's faded. Those gray clouds of the trade have kind of faded, and now you've got this energy, you've got this new era, you've got a bunch of moves that could be made this summer to make the team look even different, and you've got the easiest schedule from now until the end of the regular season.
So what's your guess? And we've touched on this briefly before, but what is your best guess about when everyone comes back, what the lineup construction is? Because to me, that becomes a very important thing here. Extremely important.
Let's bust out the old. Let's write some names down. All right. So everyone healthy, meaning Conley and Julius come back pretty soon. Let's say DiVincenzo comes back in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. Which we're still kind of waiting on. That was a pretty severe toe injury, and
yes, it was.
There's a chance, based on like what internet doctors are kind of saying, that his season's in jeopardy. So he's kind of a wild card. But just rotation without even counting starters. We'll do the starters at the end. So Gobert, let's go Naz, Jaden, Ant, and let's say Conley. I guess that would be, I think I would roll the ball out with those guys starting. And then I would say Julius, go be the best sixth man in the NBA, baby. And you be the initiator as much as you want with that second unit. In fact, we'll pull Conley off the court. We'll pull Naz off the court, and we'll throw you in there. It'll be, the first rotation will be you, maybe Ant.
But you
Jaden,
and you alone.
Gobert, and just you actually. And Nikhil, right? So Nikhil. And this is where it gets interesting, because I want Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham and Jalen Clark to get minutes.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So we're going Clark, and we're going Dilly, and we're going TSJ.
TSJ has to get. I love what that dude brings.
But then DDV coming in off the top rope at some point. So that's 11, 1 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 11 players. And it's a team that when they were fully healthy to start the year was playing 8. And sometimes a sprinkling of like a Joe Ingles or a Dillingham.
Yeah, and that's not, and in my opinion, that is a sabotage. If you go back to that, you're sabotaging this thing.
So what is the priority pecking order of how many minutes these 11, because I guess let's flip it around. Of these 11 guys, let's say it's not going to be an 11-man rotation. It's going to be 9. Who do you cut from the 11 from the rotation?
Oh, does Dillingham? Oh, okay. So I think Jalen Clark has to play some because of what he brings solely defensively, which is like a veteran presence, right? I think Terrence Shannon has to play because he, should play. 2, he brings a spark, but he's not a dumb player. The Dillingham one's interesting. I want him to play, but I also get the hesitation. The problem there is it's not like Conley. Conley can control things well, but it's not like he fixes the problems. But I think, this might sound weird, I think from a starting point of the conversation, Jalen Clark has to play some because he brings a known commodity that you need.
I agree, and I hear you. Stella is arguing with this take in the background.
You know what? Pop screwed up. I didn't. Oh man, she's on the couch right now. She's barking. I should have gone in there and situated. She likes the things all her pillows set a certain way. This is all my fault. I'm very Chris Finch like.
The beds. That's right. The bed's gone.
The bed is gone from this bedroom,
there.
so I moved. I moved Vinny's little dog bed up here, and there's also I laid a pillow out there as if like he was going to use the little pillow, but I understand Stella's frustration, because this guy, he'll whine at you if you're on his side of the couch. He'll come up to you and whine
Stella
at you.
takes over. Yeah.
Oh,
She tries to kick me out of my couch watching position.
Wow.
And I'm like, you don't need this. I need to watch sports.
Runs the house.
This is how we make money, Stella.
I have bad news for you, though, because, again, the assignment is you have to go from 11 down to 9.
Correct. Okay.
And I will give you the guys that 100% are going to play minutes in some form. Gobert, Naz, Jaden, Ant, Conley. I know that you disagree with that, but Conley is the best organizer
he should
of
play.
offense.
Yeah.
He's not going to play 35 minutes, but he's
Exactly.
going to play 20 to 25.
Okay, that's fine.
So he's in.
I'm not going to fight that.
Julius is in. Nikhil is in. And Dante, when he comes back, would be in. So that is 5, 6. That's the 8 guys that were in the. That's like the original 8 that were in it. And we're asking. I would say the compromise would be: can we get it to 10? 11 is difficult, and that leaves Jalen Clark, Rob Dillingham, and Terrence Shannon Jr. And by the way, Luka Garza has shown some flashes at times. Like he grabbed 6 offensive rebounds the other night.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah. Leonard Miller was the lone rising stars. There's
I'm okay with him
of
watching.
Hot take: Wolves have the most talented organization in the entire league. But I think you would then be choosing if it's okay between Jalen, Dilly, and Terrence Shannon Jr. You're choosing one or two of them to get some minutes depending on what night it is. But what sucks is I want to see those guys more than I want to see what we have in those guys if I'm the Timberwolves. So. These are good problems that you've got some really young, some good. They might have hit on a couple draft picks here. They might have hit on a second rounder in Jalen Clark. But yeah, people are going to be pissed that you're not going to see these guys once they get healthy Julius, Conley, and Dante DiVincenzo back. It's just not going to happen.
That's true. Although there could be cases, especially with guys that are aging or coming off injuries, for a little bit of load management at times.
Sure, Conley on back-to-backs. How many back-to-backs do they have left? They've got the home and home with Oklahoma City. Conley, okay, pick one, sit the other for sure. They've got a back-to-back home and away, Philadelphia, Charlotte, and you do not want to lose either one of those games. So you should, if there's any question about whether somebody might be lagging, throw the fresh legs in for the set. That might be where, like, all right, Terrence Shannon Jr., we need 15 minutes, bolt of lightning in that second game. Bring the energy. And then they've got another one. It's a home and home. 2 home games, Utah and Indiana, middle of March. And then there's one more in April, Memphis and Brooklyn. So they do have 4 back-to-backs, and that's a spot where, okay, those 4 back-to-backs, Conley, take a deep breath. Let's free up 20 to 25 minutes, kick your feet up, and be an assistant coach for those nights and give the extra minutes to the young guys that we just talked about.
It's a good problem, but it does
play 7 guys.
But it does have to be threaded correct, because like my prediction about them being a top 4 team is based on doing what's best for the team and not being concerned about who plays when. And quite frankly, you know what, too? This might sound nuts, but Julius coming off a groin problem, back-to-backs might not be great for him either.
Yeah, you could find some reasons to. All right, let's ease you back in off the bench first, just to make sure everything's okay, right? Didn't they do that with Cat? Did they do that with Cat once when he came back, or he might have come right out as a starter? I don't remember. A couple years ago. So, all right, well, those are the hottest Wolves takes here every single week. Hit us up in the YouTube comment section for Feedback Friday. You can also send us notes via the SKOR North app. We stockpile them for our Feedback Friday episodes. We'll get Kyle back in the mix tomorrow here. Flagrant Howls. And then the Wolves back in the mix officially on Friday night in Houston. ESPN for the next 2 games. ESPN 8:30 tip on Friday, and then on Sunday, home against Oklahoma City.
8:30 tip. Too old for this crap. I don't want. I hate 8:30.
Take
tips.
a nap.
I hate 8:30 tips. Sports Dad doesn't like that.
Nap.
Start the game at 7. Start the game at 7.
This is your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See you guys.